The first time Rowan Hale saw Maren Cole, the desert wind smell of rain and iron, high clouds bruised the sky over Ash Fork. The hills were the color of old bone. A storm moved slow and heavy along the distant ridge. The saloon door breathed out lamp heat and whiskey when he pushed through. He carried the road on his boots, and a silence that made men step aside. He did not look like law. He did not look like mercy. He looked like a man who had been both and had grown tired of each. She stood at the far end of the bar, back straight, chin lifted, no paint on her lips, no frills on her dress, simple brown cloth cinched neat at the waist, a coil of hair pinned high, calm eyes the color of wet coffee. There was dust at the hem where the street had held her. She did not belong to the noise. She stared at the mirror behind the bottles as if measuring something inside herself. Justice, he thought without meaning to. She had that look. The steady look of someone who had measured loss and did not intend to drown. A piano staggered through a song, cards slapped, a laugh cracked like a whip and fell flat. The barkeep wiped a glass, watching Rowan with that little squint that said he kept a list in his head of men to remember. A deputy in a grey vest sat near the door. His badge winked when the lamp flame breathed. Rowan took a place at the bar, 2 stools down, close enough to catch the drift of her voice when she finally spoke, far enough to be a stranger. "Whiskey," he said. "No ice." The barkeep poured without a word. Rowan tasted dust and oak. Heat settled low. He let his breath fall into a rhythm he trusted, in and out, like watching rain from a porch, like listening to horses shift weight in the dark. "You do not look like a man here for a hand of cards," the woman said without turning. "You do not look like a woman who came for a drink," he said. She turned then. He studied the small scar near her eyebrow. Old, white, almost hidden. The eyes were not calm now. They carried a question with an edge. "My name is Maren," she said. "I am here for a reason." He waited. She glanced toward the mirror again. When she spoke, her voice was low. "There is a man in this town who wears a badge he did not earn. He took something from me. He will not stand before a judge. He will not even stand before himself. So I came to learn what kind of men pass through Ash Fork, and whether one of them is the kind who could bring me what is due." Rowan looked at the deputy. The badge winked again. He looked back at her. "What is due?" "Justice," she said. Then after a breath, "The other thing. What I told myself I did not need." The piano missed a note and stopped. Outside, a thunderhead rolled over the ridge and pressed the light thin. In the quiet, the room learned what it sounded like when a woman named the ache she had carried too far. The sound was clean. It had no beg. It had only truth. "You do not know me," Rowan said. "I know a man who does not look away when he hears truth," she said. "I watched you do that just now." He let that sit. It felt like a hand laid gentle on a bruise, not pressing, recognizing. "What did he take?" Rowan asked. "My brother's breath," she said, "and the good name he died with. They called him a thief after he lay still. They said he shot first. They said it because the man with the badge said it. They buried him fast. They told me to go back home. I have no home to go back to." Her fingers held a folded paper on the bar. She slid it toward him. The stain at the corner looked like rain. He unfolded it. The sketch was clumsy but true enough. Deputy Leander Pike. The eyes on the page had a thin smile inside them. Rowan felt an old weight settle across his shoulders. He had worn it in other towns. It never fit right. He folded the paper again. "Pike," he said, "you know him." "I know the shape of his kind," Rowan said. Maren drank water, not whiskey. Her hand shook once and then went still. She lifted her chin again and put the shake away. "If you walk with this," Rowan said, "there will be no easy hour. You will be marked by his friends, if he has any, by his kind, if he breeds it, by the dry mouth of fear when you try to sleep. There is a cost. I am already paying a cost," she said. "It buys me nothing." But then she whispered, "I want the part he cannot pay back. The part he woke in me when he took my brother. I want to feel alive again. I want a hand that steadies me when my breath breaks. I want to be held so close that the world cannot find me for a while. I want to want again." The room began to move around them, as if the saloon had decided the talk was too clean to hear. Voices rose. Cards slapped. The piano found its song. The world put on its coat. But the space between Rowan and Maren stayed still. He should have said no. He should have told her to leave town at first light. He should have pointed her toward a church, a judge, the quiet of a new county. He knew this. He also knew how a man's life can keep him from the work his soul aches to do. His life had kept him from it more than once. He looked at her and felt that old work lift its head. He set down his glass. He looked at her hands, nails short, no ring, a little white line along the thumb where a blade had glanced. A woman who had learned to fix what broke, a woman who could hold a rope, a rein, a promise. "What do you want from me tonight?" he asked. "Not vengeance," she said. "Not yet. I want to know if your presence can quiet the place inside me that shouts, if I can breathe near you, if I can sleep without seeing how he fell, if I can trust my body to remember something kinder than grief." Rowan listened to the storm gather beyond the windows. The first drop popped on the sill like a small drum. He thought of the ways men break and get remade by someone who stands close without fear. He thought of beds warmed by 2 breaths. He thought of firelight and rain and the kind of healing that has its own gravity. "We start with breath," he said. "Nothing more, nothing less." He paid for the whiskey. He did not touch her yet. They stepped into the street where rain found dust and turned it to dark clay. The lamps along the boardwalk burned slow. The town narrowed to a handful of lit windows. The sky lowered. Thunder spoke like an old judge with a tired voice. They walked toward the livery where his horse waited. The animal tossed its head. Steam rose across its back when the rain touched it. He breathed with the horse, in and out. He let Maren hear that rhythm. He let her find her own. At the livery door she paused. Lightning split the ridge and showed the world in a white second. He saw the shape of a man in the alley near the general store. A shadow that leaned, then slipped away. He did not say it aloud. He put Maren to his left, closer to shelter. He looked back once and saw only rain. He saddled slow. He lifted her up. Her skirt gathered dark in the wet. He swung up behind and settled his hands to the leather, not her waist. She felt it. She leaned into his chest without asking. Her breath stuttered once. Then it set itself to his. He turned the horse toward the hills where the rain softened to a silver veil. The town fell behind them. The storm laid a hush over the world. He felt her shoulders ease. He felt the old weight on his shoulders sit different, as if it had found a place to rest for a while. Ahead, the black mouth of a box canyon waited with a cottonwood and a lean-to left by some cowhand with a good heart. Firewood stacked under a sheet of tin, dry enough to catch. Rowan thought of what the night would ask of him, the gentleness, the guard, the steady presence. The promise held without words. Behind them, a badge glinted once under a lamplight and then vanished into the rain. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The night still holds more to tell. Like, share, or comment if you have felt that same quiet longing beneath the western sky. Let your presence be known. Your voice keeps this fire burning for the next chapter. The rain lasted through the night, a steady whisper on the tin roof. The fire he built glowed soft against the rock wall, gold and patient. Maren sat wrapped in a wool blanket, hair loosened, eyes tracing the flames. The sound of the rain filled the space between them like breath too shy to touch. Rowan watched her from the shadows near the saddle rack. His coat steamed in the heat. The smell of wet leather and smoke mingled in the air. He had seen women hide fear behind fury before, but not like this. She carried both quiet and fire in the same breath, as if she had learned to survive by being both storm and shelter. "You haven't asked why I came to Ash Fork," she said. He looked into the fire. "I already know. You think you do." He let the silence stretch. She pulled the blanket tighter, as though she needed to feel her own boundaries before crossing them. "I was a deputy once," he said. "Not here. Another place. Another time." Her eyes lifted. "You left the law. The law left me," Rowan said. It stopped looking like truth. She studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "My brother believed in the law. He thought it would keep him safe. He was wrong." Rowan nodded. The rain softened. The fire sighed. He could feel her grief like a wound that refused to close. "What would you do if you found him?" he asked. "The man who took him from me." "Yes." She stared at the flames. Her voice was steady when it came. "I'd make him look me in the eye. I'd let him see what he made. Then I'd take back what belongs to me." "What is that?" "Peace," she said. "Or whatever's left of it." Rowan poured her a cup of coffee from the pot near the fire. She took it, fingers brushing his. The touch was small, but it lit something that neither of them tried to name. "You don't have to walk this alone," he said. "I've been alone a long time," Maren said. "It's easier that way." "Is it?" She looked at him, and for a heartbeat the room felt smaller, closer. The sound of the rain softened into rhythm. He reached toward the fire, added another piece of wood. Sparks climbed the air like tiny prayers. She watched his hands, scarred, rough, certain. "What about you?" she asked. "What keeps a man like you moving from one town to the next?" He thought of names buried under dust, faces he hadn't spoken of in years. He thought of promises broken in blood. "Maybe I'm still looking for the thing you're after," he said. "Justice?" "No. Forgiveness." Her breath caught, as if the word had opened a door inside her. The firelight painted her face in amber and gold. The storm eased, only a soft drizzle now, the kind that left the desert smelling of new beginnings. He stood and took his coat from the rack. The night outside was pale with mist. Horses shifted, tails flicking. "We'll ride at first light," he said. "Pike won't sit quiet for long." She set the empty cup down. "I didn't ask you to come. You didn't have to," he said. "Some things don't need asking." Maren looked up at him. For the first time since he'd met her, the strength in her gaze softened into something else. Trust, maybe, or the start of it. Rowan sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, far enough to let her breathe. "You should sleep," he said. "I will. When you do." He smiled, a rare thing, small but real. She lay down on the bedroll near the fire, the blanket pulled high. Her eyes stayed on him until sleep found her. Rowan sat awake a while longer, listening to the rain, to her breathing, to the quiet that settled between them like a promise waiting to be spoken. He thought of what tomorrow might bring: dust, gunfire, or peace if they were lucky. But for now, this was enough. Outside, the rain stopped. The desert breathed again. The dawn waited somewhere beyond the ridge. What he didn't know was that the man they hunted had already learned her name. If this story has touched a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The fire still burns, and the next chapter waits beyond the morning light. The dawn rose grey and clean over the desert. Mist clung to the low hills, and the air carried that rare, cool sweetness that only comes after rain. Rowan saddled the horses while Maren folded the blankets. Her movements were calm, deliberate, but her eyes told another story, restless, sharp, waiting for something to begin. They rode out as the first light brushed the ridge. The land was a wide silence, broken only by the steady rhythm of hooves and the cry of a lone hawk turning slow above them. Maren rode beside him. She had borrowed one of his coats. It hung loose around her shoulders, smelling faintly of smoke and leather. She looked smaller in it, but stronger somehow, as if she'd stepped into the armor of a life that wasn't afraid of dust or scars. "You always ride this quiet?" she asked. "Only when the silence says more than I can," Rowan said. "And what's it saying now? That the man we're after isn't far." Her hand tightened on the reins. "How do you know?" "A feeling," he said, "the kind that keeps men alive." They followed the dry creek bed north toward the ridge where the land narrowed into a pass. Rowan stopped once, studying the ground. Tracks. 3 horses, 1 rider lighter than the rest. He brushed the dirt with his glove. "Pike's men," he said. "He's keeping company." Her jaw set. "Good. Let him bring every coward who stands beside him. I want them all to know why I came." He looked at her. "That kind of fire can burn you first." "Then let it," she said. "I've lived in the ashes long enough." They rode on. The sun broke through at last, gold spilling across the sand. It lit her hair where it escaped from the braid, and he caught himself watching longer than he should have. She felt it too. "You keep staring," she said. "Habit," Rowan said. "The road's long. A man looks at what steadies him." She almost smiled, but it faltered. "Tell me something, Rowan. You ever killed a man for someone else's justice?" "Yes." "Did it help?" "No. But it stopped the bleeding for a while." The trail led them to an abandoned way station by noon, a wooden shack half buried in sage and sand. The roof sagged, and the wind made the door creak like an old voice. Rowan dismounted, studied the ground again, fresh tracks. He motioned for her to stay behind the wall. Inside, the smell of smoke lingered. Someone had been here last night. A half-burned cigar, a cup still damp. Rowan's hand hovered near his gun. He stepped out again, scanning the ridge. The world was too still. Maren waited, hand on the pistol he'd given her. He saw how her fingers shook, just slightly, then went still. "You ever shot a man?" he asked quietly. "No." "Then hope you don't have to." She looked at him. "I stopped hoping a long time ago." He almost said something, but movement on the ridge cut him short. 2 riders, maybe 3, moving slow. One of them tall, broad in the shoulders. Even from this distance, Rowan recognized the way the man sat his horse, like he thought the land belonged to him. Pike. Rowan watched them descend, dust rising behind. He turned to Maren. "You stay here. I won't hide. This isn't hiding. It's breathing long enough to aim true." He led his horse behind the rocks, crouched low, rifle ready. Pike and his men came closer, one laughing, one spitting. The deputy's badge caught the sun. When they reached the clearing, Pike dismounted. His boots sank in the wet clay. He looked around like a man who already knew he was being watched. Rowan stepped out. The rifle stayed low, but his voice carried, "Morning, Pike." The deputy turned. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then that thin smile curved his mouth. "Hale, didn't think you'd still be alive." "Luck runs long in bad men," Rowan said. Pike laughed. "What brings you out here, old ghost?" "The woman you buried in your lies," Rowan said. Pike's grin froze. Then he saw her. Maren stepping out from the doorway, her pistol steady. "You," Pike said, "should have stayed gone." "I came to finish what you started," she said. Pike took one step forward, hands easy at his sides. "You think you'll make me pay with that little gun? You don't have it in you, sweetheart." "Maybe not," she said. "But he does." Rowan lifted the rifle. Pike's men froze. The wind cut through the silence, cold and sharp. No one moved for a long moment. Then Pike smiled again. Slow, poisonous. "You kill me, Hale, and you'll never stop running." "I already don't," Rowan said. But then, from somewhere deep behind the ridge, came the faint sound of a whistle. 3 short notes. Pike turned, startled. "He's not alone," Rowan said. A shot cracked from the hills. The bullet hit the post near Maren, splinters flying. Rowan pulled her down, the rifle roaring once in answer. One of Pike's men fell, his hat spinning into the mud. Maren gasped, pressed her hands to her ears. Rowan reached for her, pulled her close behind the rocks. "Stay down," he said. "I'm not afraid," she whispered. He looked at her, face streaked with dirt, eyes fierce. The storm inside her had found its edge. He loaded again. When he looked up, Pike was gone. The ridge smoked in the sunlight. "He's running," Rowan said. "Then let's finish this," she said. He nodded. They moved together toward the ridge, shadows long behind them, hearts beating in the same rough rhythm. Justice and something else rising between every breath. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The desert still has secrets to reveal under the next sun. The ridge cut sharp against the afternoon sky. The sun hung low, a burning coin sinking into dust. Maren and Rowan rode in silence, their horses breathing hard as the trail narrowed into stone and scrub. The air was heavy with the scent of gunpowder and rain-soaked sage. They had lost sight of Pike, but his tracks ran clear, deep prints in the mud. He was running, but not far enough. Rowan's instincts said the man would make for higher ground, somewhere with a view, somewhere he could strike first. Maren broke the silence. "You think he'll wait for us up there?" "He will," Rowan said. "A man like Pike wants to end things on his own terms." She adjusted the reins, her jaw tight. "Then I'll give him that chance." He looked over, saw the flicker of something behind her eyes, fear maybe, but tangled with resolve, the kind that comes from pain too long carried. He slowed his horse. "Listen to me, Maren. You've got to keep your head clear. Revenge burns fast and dies cold." "I'm not after revenge," she said. "I'm after truth. Truth can cut as deep as a bullet." "Then let it," she said. "I've been bleeding for years anyway." They reached a flat stretch where the world fell open, sand and stone rolling down to the valley, the far ridge painted red by dusk. Rowan dismounted, crouched to study the prints again. Fresh. Pike's horse had stumbled here. The man was tired. Desperate. "He's close," Rowan said. Maren's voice softened. "And when we find him, we'll see what kind of justice the desert remembers." They moved on foot, careful and quiet. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of smoke. Rowan's hand went to his revolver. A small campfire flickered just beyond the next rise. 3 horses tied to a dead branch. No voices, no movement. Rowan motioned her to stay low. He circled wide through the rocks. When he came up behind the camp, he found only one man, Pike's second, the younger one who'd been laughing earlier. Now he lay slumped against a boulder, blood dried at the corner of his mouth. Maren stepped beside him. Her face was pale but steady. "He's still warm," she said. "Pike left him," Rowan said. "That's how he treats his own." Maren knelt, brushed dust from the dead man's sleeve. Her hand lingered, not in pity, but in recognition of what violence costs. Rowan watched her, saw the strength in the way she didn't look away. "You've seen death before," he said. "I grew up with it," she said. "On a ranch, you learn that everything you love can die before sunrise." Her eyes lifted to his. "That's why I stopped loving. Until now." He felt the words hit something inside him, an ache he'd kept buried under years of silence. He wanted to say her name, but the wind moved first. A sound, a scrape of boot on rock from above. Rowan pulled her down behind a boulder just as a bullet screamed past. It hit the ground where she'd been standing, spraying grit. He fired once toward the ridge. The echo rolled like thunder. "Stay down," he said. "I can fight. You can survive," he said. "That's what matters." She nodded, pressed her back to the stone. He could feel her breathing, quick and shallow. He steadied his own breath, loud enough for her to hear. Slow in, slow out. The next shot came closer. Rowan aimed toward the flash and fired twice. Silence followed. Smoke drifted up the ridge, the echo faded into the wind. Then a voice called down, drawling, sharp. "You're wasting lead, Hale. You can't kill what's already blessed by the badge." Pike's voice. Cold as snakebite. Rowan stood, careful, rifle raised. Pike stood 50 yards up, silhouetted by the dying sun, a revolver in one hand and arrogance in his stance. "You think that tin star saves you?" Rowan called. "But you've forgotten the desert has its own law." Pike laughed. "And who made you its preacher?" "The woman you wronged," Rowan said. Maren stepped out before he could stop her. She faced Pike with her chin high, hair whipping in the wind. "You lied," she shouted. "You killed my brother and called him a thief. Say his name." Pike hesitated. For a heartbeat, something flickered across his face. Recognition or guilt or both. "Your brother drew first," he said. "Liar." Rowan saw her raise the pistol, both hands shaking but sure. Pike's smile vanished. "You won't do it," he said. She didn't answer. Her finger tightened, then stopped. Rowan moved to her side, his voice low. "Don't let him turn your pain into his power. He doesn't deserve it." Maren's breath came hard. Then she lowered the gun, eyes burning with something deeper than hate. "You'll face the truth," she said. "I'll see to that." But Pike wasn't listening. He fired. The shot tore the edge of Rowan's coat and sent them both diving for cover. Rowan returned fire, 2 shots, fast. One caught Pike in the shoulder. The man fell back, sliding down the slope with a curse. Rowan ran forward, gun drawn. But by the time he reached the spot, Pike was gone again, a trail of blood leading into the canyon's shadow. "He's hurt," Rowan said. "He won't get far." Maren came up beside him, face streaked with dust and fury. Her voice trembled. "I should have ended it." "You did," he said. Just not the way he expected. They stood there, the wind tugging at their coats, the sky turning red behind them. For a long while, neither spoke. Then Maren stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "You said, 'Revenge dies cold.' What does healing feel like?" He looked at her, the last light catching her face. "Like standing still after years of running," he said. She nodded, her eyes soft now. "Then maybe we both needed this chase." The night crept in slow, stars breaking through the dark. Somewhere beyond the ridge, Pike bled into the shadows, and the desert waited to see what would come next. If this story has stirred something quiet in your soul, stay near. The wind hasn't finished speaking, and the next part rides close behind the night. The stars burned sharp over the desert, their light spilling silver across the rocks. The air carried the faint hum of crickets and the low sigh of cooling wind. Rowan and Maren made camp at the mouth of the canyon, a small fire flickering between them. The flames caught the edges of her face, soft and strong, the reflection of everything she had survived. Pike's trail wound into the dark, marked by drops of blood that disappeared among the stones. He was hurt bad, but not dead. Not yet. Rowan knew men like him, too mean to die easy, too proud to ask for mercy. He stirred the fire with a stick. "We'll find him at first light." Maren nodded, but said nothing. Her eyes were distant, fixed on the shadows that trembled at the edge of the firelight. "You did well today," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "You mean I didn't fall apart?" "You didn't have to," he said. "You held steady when it counted. That's more than most." She looked down at her hands. They were still trembling, the memory of the gun heavy in her palms. "I thought I wanted to kill him. I thought that would make the noise stop inside me. But when I saw him, I couldn't." "That's not weakness," Rowan said. "That's strength that still remembers what mercy feels like." She looked up at him, eyes glassy in the firelight. "Mercy for him or for me?" "For yourself," he said. "Mercy's the first step toward peace." She let the words sink in. Then she said softly, "You talk like a preacher." "I'm no preacher," he said. "Just a man who's buried enough ghosts to know which ones still breathe." The fire cracked. Smoke curled toward the sky. Maren shifted closer to the warmth. Her hair fell loose from its braid, catching light like fine copper thread. "You never said why you left the badge behind," she said. He stared into the flames for a long time before answering. "I served under a sheriff who thought justice was measured by who could shoot first. I did his work, until one day I looked down at a man I'd shot and realized I'd become what I hunted. I left the badge where it fell, and since then—" He gave a slow shrug. "Since then, I've been trying to find the part of myself that didn't die with that man." Her voice was soft now. "Maybe that's what I'm doing too." He met her gaze. The quiet between them changed. No longer the silence of strangers, but the stillness of two people who had run out of places to hide. The fire dimmed. The world outside it grew dark and close. She drew her blanket tighter, eyes never leaving him. "Do you ever forget the faces?" she asked. "The ones you couldn't save?" "No," he said, "but sometimes they fade into something gentler." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe that's all we can ask for." He stood, walked to the edge of the firelight. The desert stretched endless. Black hills under starlight, wind whispering through dry grass. He turned back, saw her watching him. "You should rest," he said. "I can't sleep. My thoughts don't know how to be quiet yet." He came back to the fire, sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Then listen to the night instead," he said. "The desert knows how to keep its peace." They sat that way a long while, the rhythm of the wind slowly easing the tightness in their chests. When at last she leaned her head lightly against his shoulder, he didn't move. He only breathed deeper, steady, letting her find her calm in his stillness. "You don't have to carry it all alone anymore," he said. "I don't know how to stop," she whispered. "Then let me teach you." Her eyes lifted to his, the firelight flickering between them. She didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. Something fragile and alive passed in the space of that silence, something that felt like trust. The night deepened. The fire burned low. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called, long and lonely. Rowan laid another log on the coals, and the light rose again, touching her face. For the first time since he'd met her, he saw not the woman chasing justice, but the woman beneath it, tired, brave, and aching for rest. He felt his chest tighten. He had promised himself once that he would never feel this again. But promises mean little in the desert. She spoke barely above a whisper. "Tomorrow, when we find him, promise me you won't do it for me. Do it because it's right." He nodded. "I promise." Then she smiled, small, weary, but real. "Thank you." He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. Her eyes closed at the touch, not in fear, but in surrender. The fire cracked once more, sparks rising like stars escaping the earth. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The wind still carries what the dawn will bring. The dawn came slow, painted in bruised gold across the canyon walls. Mist lifted from the ground like breath. The horses stamped and snorted in the cold. Rowan was already saddling them when Maren woke. Her hair was tousled, her eyes soft with sleep, and something heavier, resolve. He handed her coffee in a tin cup. She wrapped her hands around it, warming her fingers. Neither spoke for a while. The silence between them felt full, alive with everything left unsaid. Finally she said, "I dreamed of my brother." He was standing by the corral back home. The light was the same as this, thin, tender. He wasn't angry anymore. "Maybe he knows you're close to peace," Rowan said. "Maybe," she said, "or maybe he knows I'm close to danger." They rode out as the sun crested the ridge. Pike's trail wound deeper into the canyon, where the stone walls narrowed and the air turned cool and still. The tracks were fresher now, the blood darker. "He's losing strength," Rowan said. Maren's voice was steady. "Then he's cornered." They moved quietly, hooves muffled on damp earth. The canyon twisted ahead, shadows deepening. Rowan raised a hand. "Stop." He dismounted, crouched low. There, a flicker of smoke ahead, faint and thin. A campfire. He motioned for her to stay back. She shook her head. "I'm not waiting this time." Rowan didn't argue. He knew there was no stopping her now. They moved together, step by step, until the fire came into view. Pike sat hunched beside it, one arm bound in a bloody rag, his face pale but his eyes sharp. His gun lay near his hand. He looked up when he heard them. "So the preacher and the widow," he said, voice rough. "Come to finish your sermon. You ran out of lies, Pike," Rowan said. "Time to speak truth." Pike laughed, low and ragged. "Truth's just a story told by whoever's left standing." Maren stepped forward. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Then, "Tell mine." He turned to her, studying her face. "You look like him," he said. "Same eyes, same foolish faith." Her jaw tightened. "Say his name." Pike smiled faintly. "You want to hear it?" "Fine." Eli Cole. He thought he could outdraw the law. He couldn't. He reached for his gun. Rowan fired first. The bullet hit the rock by Pike's hand, spinning the revolver away. Pike froze. Maren walked closer, each step measured. "You killed him because he wouldn't pay you, because he caught you stealing from the evidence chest." Pike's silence was answer enough. She stood over him, her voice trembling. "He was innocent, and you took everything from him." Pike looked up, something like shame flickering in his eyes, gone as quick as it came. "Maybe. But the badge said I was right, and the badge always wins." "Not anymore," she said. He leaned back against the stone, breathing hard. "Go ahead, then. Do it. Prove you're no better than me." Rowan watched her. Her hands were steady, the gun pointed at Pike's chest. But her eyes were breaking. She lowered the gun. "No. Killing you would keep me tied to you forever. I want my life back, not your death." Pike stared, almost confused. Then he laughed weakly. "You think forgiveness makes you free?" "No," she said. "But it makes you small enough to forget." Rowan stepped forward, tied Pike's hands with rope. He'd drag him back to Ash Fork, to whatever justice the town still had left. When it was done, Maren turned away, her shoulders shaking. Rowan walked to her, placed a hand on her arm. "You did what few could," he said. "I didn't feel strong," she said. "I just felt tired. That's what strength feels like sometimes." She looked at him, her eyes shining with tears she didn't try to hide. "What about you, Rowan? What do you carry that still hurts?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "A woman I couldn't save. She believed in me more than I did. I lost her to a bullet meant for me. Ever since, I've been riding from ghost to ghost, hoping one of them forgives me first." Maren reached out, touched his cheek lightly. "Then maybe it's time you forgave yourself." The touch lingered. His breath caught. The desert around them blurred, the silence turning warm. He leaned closer, not meaning to. She didn't move away. Their foreheads touched, a quiet meeting between two broken edges finding a fit. The wind sighed through the canyon, soft and low. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled with something deeper than grief. "Stay with me until it's over." "I will," Rowan said. They stood that way a long time, the morning sun turning gold around them, the fire dying slow behind Pike's bound figure. If this story has stirred something in your heart, stay close. The night ahead holds both danger and redemption waiting beneath the same sky. Night fell like velvet over the canyon. The last light faded from the stone, and the fire they built glowed steady between them. Pike was tied to a post a few yards away, silent except for the low rasp of his breath. The desert stretched wide and black beyond the camp, stars scattered thick as dust. Rowan sat sharpening his knife, slow and rhythmic. Each scrape against the whetstone carried the same calm as his breathing. Maren watched him from across the fire. Her face was lit gold, her eyes distant but no longer hollow. Something in her had shifted. The storm had quieted, though the wind still stirred the edges. "You trust the law to do what's right this time?" she asked. "No," Rowan said, "but I trust you to know when to walk away." She smiled faintly. "That's not an answer. It's the best I've got," he said. She looked at Pike, then back at him. "If he escapes again, then the desert will finish what we started." She nodded, letting that truth settle. The wind hissed through the sage. The fire cracked. After a while she said, "It feels strange. I thought when I found him I'd feel alive again, but all I feel is empty." "That's because revenge isn't a home," Rowan said. "It's a road that ends in dust." She looked at him for a long moment. "And where does your road end, Rowan Hale?" He smiled without joy. "Haven't found it yet." She stood and walked to the fire, her shadow moving across the rocks. The flames danced in her hair, turning it to copper. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "You could stop riding, you know. Stop running, you mean." "Maybe it's the same thing," she said. He looked at her, the light painting every curve of her face. She wasn't just the woman who wanted justice anymore. She was something steadier, gentler, a reminder of the life he'd forgotten how to want. She knelt beside him, close enough that he could feel her warmth through the cool desert air. Her hand brushed the sleeve of his coat. "You're always watching the horizon," she said. "What are you looking for out there?" "Peace," he said. "And have you ever found it?" He met her eyes. "Maybe I just did." For a long time neither spoke. The silence turned heavy, filled with things too fragile for words. When she reached for his hand, he didn't pull away. Her fingers were cold. His were steady. They fit like they had been waiting for that moment. "Rowan," she whispered. He looked at her, and something broke open in him. Not the hard, violent break of loss, but the slow, quiet one that comes when a man remembers he's still alive. He leaned closer. The firelight wavered. Their breath mingled. Smoke, coffee, and the faint sweetness of rain that still clung to her skin. When their lips met, it wasn't hunger. It was relief. The kind that softens scars instead of deepening them. Her hand slid to his jaw. His arm wrapped around her waist. The world outside the fire faded until there was only the rhythm of their breathing and the hush of wind across the sand. Later, when the fire burned low and the stars drew closer, she lay beside him beneath his coat. Her head rested against his chest, listening to the slow thud of his heart. He traced a strand of her hair between his fingers. "You sure about this road?" he asked. She nodded, eyes half closed. "As long as you're walking it beside me." He smiled, a soundless thing. He had spent years chasing ghosts, and tonight he had found something worth staying for. Across the fire, Pike stirred, muttering in his sleep. Rowan looked toward him and then back at her. Tomorrow they would ride to Ash Fork. Tomorrow the world would start again. But tonight the desert had forgiven them both. Maren's voice was drowsy when she spoke. "What happens when the dawn comes?" "We keep breathing," Rowan said, "one sunrise at a time." The fire crackled softly, throwing their shadows long against the canyon wall. The stars blinked like slow-burning candles. For the first time in years, Rowan felt the weight on his shoulders lift. Not gone, but lighter, as if she carried part of it now. Her hand tightened around his. "Don't let go," she whispered. "Never," he said. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The fire still burns, and the dawn will tell what love is brave enough to remain. The sun rose pale and cool over the canyon, a soft wash of light spilling over stone and ash. The air held the scent of wet dust and smoke. Maren woke first, the fire long since gone to embers. Rowan sat a few paces away, rifle across his knees, watching the trail below. He had been awake all night. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Didn't need to," he answered. Some mornings ask for quiet more than rest. She pulled his coat tighter around her shoulders and walked to him. Pike was still tied, slumped against the post, eyes closed but breathing steady. The wound on his shoulder had darkened, dried blood turning rust red. He looked smaller now, emptied of arrogance, just another man waiting for consequence. Maren's voice was steady. "We take him to town today." Rowan nodded. "The people there will want answers." They packed in silence. The morning air bit their skin, but neither complained. When they finally mounted up, Pike tied to Rowan's horse, the trail stretched long and pale ahead of them. The ride back was slow. The world felt different now, lighter, but uncertain. Maren's thoughts tangled between relief and something harder to name. Rowan watched her from the corner of his eye. She looked calm, but her grip on the reins was tight. "You don't have to be strong every moment," he said. Her gaze stayed forward. "If I stop now, I'll break. Sometimes breaking is how we start over," he said. She breathed out, long and low. Maybe. By midday, they reached the first ridge overlooking Ash Fork. Smoke curled from the chimneys, small figures moving along the street. The same town that had buried her brother in lies. Maren stopped her horse. "I don't know if I can walk back into that place." "You don't walk in alone," Rowan said. She looked at him, and something inside her steadied. "Then let's finish it." They rode down slow, dust rising around them. The town grew quiet as they passed. Faces appeared in doorways, whispers trailing behind. When they stopped in front of the sheriff's office, even the wind seemed to pause. Rowan dismounted, pulled Pike from the saddle, and dragged him toward the porch. The man stumbled, cursing under his breath. The sheriff stepped out, old, grey, eyes sharp under the brim of his hat. He looked from Pike to Rowan to Maren. "What's this about?" Rowan's voice carried like gravel. "Deputy Pike. Murder and theft under colour of law." The crowd thickened. Murmurs rippled through. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "That's a heavy claim, Hale." "Then ask him yourself," Rowan said. He shoved Pike forward. The man stumbled again, blood seeping fresh through his shirt. For the first time, fear flashed in his eyes. The sheriff looked at Maren. "You got words to add to this?" Her voice didn't shake. "He killed my brother, Eli Cole. Framed him for stealing evidence he never touched. I've carried the proof since that night." She handed over a folded paper, a letter with the sheriff's own signature, stolen and altered by Pike. The old man's eyes widened as he read. He looked up, fury burning through the years in his voice. "You lying bastard!" Pike laughed weakly. "You think this town wants truth? They wanted blood then, and they'll want it now. Nothing changes." Maren stepped forward. "It changes when someone stops running." The sheriff grabbed Pike by the collar and shoved him inside. "Lock him up," he told his men. "We'll have trial by dawn." When it was done, the crowd began to drift away, whispering. Maren stood on the porch, staring at the door that had closed on her grief. Rowan touched her shoulder. "It's over." She turned to him. "No, it's beginning." He understood. She wasn't talking about Pike anymore. They walked away from the noise, down toward the edge of town where the hills rose wide and quiet. The air smelled of dust and freedom. "You could stay," she said softly. "Build something here." He smiled, faint but warm. "A man like me doesn't build easy. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe you just have to stop tearing things down." He stopped walking. Her words hung between them, true and heavy. "You'd have me stay? I'd have you breathe," she said. He looked at her then, really looked. The strength in her stance, the softness returning to her face, the light in her eyes that hadn't been there before. He reached for her hand. She let him. The town's noise faded behind them, replaced by wind and the distant cry of a hawk. "You saved me," she said quietly. "No," he said. "You just remembered how to save yourself." She smiled, eyes bright in the afternoon sun. Maybe both. They stood there until the world went still again, the horizon stretching wide and waiting. But then, from far down the street, a voice rose. A deputy shouting, boots running. Rowan turned. "Pike's gone." The words struck like a bullet. Maren's breath caught. Rowan's hand went to his revolver. He couldn't have gotten far. she said. "He's wounded," Rowan said. "But he's desperate." Their horses were already turning toward the open desert. The peace they'd almost found scattered like sand in the wind. If this story has stayed close to your heart, hold on. The storm isn't done, and love still has one more trial beneath the western sky. The sun had dropped behind the ridge, setting the desert on fire with the last red light of day. Dust rose from the hooves of their horses as Rowan and Maren rode hard, the town shrinking behind them. The wind carried only the sound of pursuit and the faint echo of their own hearts. Pike's trail cut through the dry wash north of Ash Fork. Blood marked the stones, faint but steady. He was hurt bad, but still riding with the stubbornness of a man who refused to die before taking someone with him. Rowan's jaw was set. He knew this kind of man too well. Wounded pride could burn longer than life itself. Maren leaned forward in her saddle. Her face was pale but fierce in the fading light. "He's heading for the river bend," she said. "He'll try to cross at the Narrows." Rowan nodded. "Then that's where it ends." They rode until the world turned blue with dusk. The river shimmered ahead, narrow and fast, cutting through a canyon of red stone. A single figure moved on the far side. Pike, slumped in the saddle, his shirt dark with blood. Rowan raised his rifle. But before he could aim, Pike turned, voice rough and ragged against the wind. "You think you've won, Hale? You think you're better than me?" Rowan's voice was calm. "I don't need to be better. I just need to stop you." Pike laughed, coughing blood. "Then do it. Show her what kind of man you really are." Maren's horse shifted beside Rowan's. She could see the hatred in Pike's eyes, the same poison she'd carried for so long, now burning itself to ash inside him. "Don't," she said softly. "Not like this." "He deserves to face judgment," Rowan said. "He already is," she said. "Look at him. The desert's taking him back." Pike swayed in his saddle, his voice fading to a rasp. "You think justice means something out here? It doesn't. It never did. The land forgets us all." Then he drew his gun, fast, reckless. A shot rang out, slicing the air. Maren cried out, but Rowan had already moved. He fired once. The bullet hit clean. Pike fell from his horse, rolling down the slope, the gun slipping from his hand. The river swallowed the sound. When the echo died, the world went silent again. Rowan dismounted, walked to where Pike lay. The man was still breathing, barely. His eyes found Rowan's. "You think this makes you clean?" Rowan looked down at him, the rifle hanging loose at his side. "No," he said. "Just finished." Pike's breath shuddered, then stopped. Rowan stood there for a long moment, the wind cold against his face. Maren came beside him, her hand trembling as it found his arm. He didn't look at her yet. Just at the river, running dark under the last light, she spoke softly. "It's over." He finally turned. Maybe. He wiped the blood from his hands in the river, watched it drift away. The water looked almost golden in the dying sun. "You didn't have a choice," she said. "There's always a choice," Rowan said. "The hard part is living with it." They stood there until the light was gone, the stars waking one by one. When the air turned colder, Maren stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "Then live with me." He looked at her, saw the strength behind the softness. She wasn't asking for a savior. She was offering a home, the kind made of breath and warmth and the promise of tomorrow. He touched her cheek, rough thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "You sure about this?" "I've never been more sure," she said. He let out a slow breath. Then maybe we both found what we were chasing. They kissed under the rising moon, not desperate, not broken, but whole at last. The desert wind carried the scent of rain and ash, and for a moment it felt like forgiveness. When they pulled apart, Maren looked toward the river. "What happens now?" "We ride back," Rowan said. "Tell the truth. Set things right."
"Then maybe I hang up this gun for good. And after that," he smiled, small and quiet, "then I'll follow the sound of your voice wherever it goes." They mounted their horses, riding slow through the moonlight. The land stretched endless around them, and the night felt clean. Behind them, the river kept moving, carrying away what was done, making room for what could be. If this story has touched a quiet place inside you, stay close. The final dawn waits, where love and forgiveness meet beneath the western sky. The dawn came soft and gold over the valley, painting the hills in light. The air smelled of dust, sage, and the faint sweetness of river water drying on stone. Rowan and Maren rode side by side through the quiet, their shadows long and slow across the earth. Ash Fork waited ahead, small and still, smoke rising thin from a few chimneys. The town was waking to another day, but everything felt changed. The wind itself carried a gentler sound. When they reached the ridge above the town, Rowan stopped his horse. He looked down at the roofs, the narrow streets, the church steeple catching sunlight. "You could stay," Maren said. He nodded, eyes on the horizon. "I could." She waited. "But you won't, will you?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe not forever. The land still has things it wants me to hear." "Then go where it leads," she said. "Just don't disappear." He turned to her. His voice was quiet. "I've been a ghost long enough." They rode into town slow. People stepped aside when they passed. Some whispered his name, others bowed their heads. No one looked at Maren with pity now. Only respect. At the sheriff's office, Rowan handed over the letter that proved Pike's crimes. The old sheriff read it again and again before looking up. "The truth's clear enough now," he said. "You did what the law couldn't." Rowan shook his head. "The law needed to remember it belongs to the living, not the dead." The sheriff nodded once. Then he looked at Maren. "Your brother's name will be cleared. His grave will bear the truth before sundown." Tears shone in her eyes, but her voice stayed steady. "Thank you." When they stepped outside, the morning sun had climbed higher. Dust glowed in the light like floating gold. Maren stood quiet for a long while, watching the sky. "He's free now," she said. Rowan looked at her. "So are you." She turned to him, eyes bright. "What about you, Rowan Hale?" He smiled, small and soft. "Maybe I'm learning." They walked together down the street, the town moving around them. Voices rising, doors opening, a piano playing somewhere faint and sweet. The world was ordinary again, but it didn't feel empty anymore. At the edge of town, the horses waited. Rowan placed a hand on hers, rough fingers brushing soft leather. "You could come with me," he said. "The road's wide, the nights are long." She looked at him, a smile slow as sunrise.
or you could stay." He laughed, quiet and low. "You always have to have the last word, don't you?" "Only when it's worth saying," she said. He stepped closer, close enough to feel her breath. "You made me remember what peace feels like, and you made me believe it could last," she whispered. They kissed once more, gentle, unhurried, the kind that carries both goodbye and promise. When they parted, the light had grown warm around them. He mounted his horse, the leather creaking under his weight. Maren stood beside her own, hand resting on the saddle, watching him. "If the wind ever brings you back," she said, "you'll find me here." He nodded. "If it ever carries your name, I'll follow it home." He turned his horse toward the open desert. The sun rose behind him, throwing gold across the land. His shadow stretched long and straight down the road until it blended into light. Maren watched until he was gone. Then she looked toward the hills, the place where her brother had fallen, and whispered a quiet prayer that sounded like release. The wind picked up, soft and clean, carrying the smell of rain somewhere far off. The town bell rang once, and the sound lingered like memory. She smiled. The story of Eli Cole had ended in truth. The story of Maren and Rowan had just begun. The firelight in her heart stayed steady, glowing like dawn. If this story has touched a tender place in your heart, let your light stay with us. Comment, share, and subscribe so this Western fire keeps burning for you.